friends to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. There behind the glass stands a real blade of grass. Be careful as you pass. Move along, move along. Come inside, the show's about to start. Guaranteed to blow your head apart. Rest assured you'll get your money's worth. Great show, it happened all right. You gotta see the show. It's a dynamo. You gotta see the show. It's rock and roll. Oh, right before your eyes, we will laugh up from the skies. And he laughs until he cries. And he dies, and he dies. Come inside, the show's about to start. Guaranteed to blow your head apart. You gotta see the show. It's a dynamo. You gotta see the show. It's rock and roll. Oh, performing on a stool, we recite to make you through. 7 virgins out of you. Keep it cool, keep it cool. We like it to be known. The exhibits that were shown were exclusively our own, all our own.
What? Have I been on mute the entire time? Oh, man. That's horrible. Okay. That stinks. All right. So, hey, this is going to be a great podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I wonder how that happened. Let me check something. I wonder if because I did that. All right. Well, we'll redo this because this is supposed to be a podcast anyway. So I'll just remind myself here. So I did the intro. I did the story about her 75th birthday. And now I'm talking about how she almost knew everyone in the world. So, yeah. And then somehow the mic was on mute, probably because I didn't undo the intro or something. And so it stayed on mute. But good thing this is a podcast. So even though this is live and people can see me if they want, this is a podcast. So it'll be mostly verbal. So I can just redo episode 2. And when I populate it on Captivate to go to Spotify and Apple and all that, I'll make sure that's done. And it doesn't look like I have an audience anyway, so it doesn't really matter. However, so if you're checking in, this is episode 2 of Almost the Real Spiel with Marky B. I'm Marky B, and we're talking about my mom. Last week we talked about my dad, and so it's kind of the origin story. Got my X from my mom, my Y from my dad, and there you go. There's less in chromosomes. So she almost knew everybody. So things she would do is no matter where we were at or what conversation she was having, when she met someone, by the end of the conversation, she would find a link. So you've heard of 6 degrees of separation. Not 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, which is an awesome, awesome game. But maybe we'll talk about that some other time because I was almost the champion of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Anyways, we're talking about 6 degrees of separation and my mom almost knowing everybody in the world. So she, in a conversation, she could weave her way through the conversation, asking questions. And sometimes they weren't even that direct. And you're like, what is she getting at? How is she going to get this? And then you would have, I'll talk about an instance of that in a second. But here's being a child of this mom, we would experience conversations like this at some times. She'd be like, Mark. I'm like, what, Mom? What's going on? Oh, I met somebody you might know. I'm like, okay, who is it? And she'd be like, John Brubaker. I'm like, John Brubaker. No, it doesn't ring any bells. You know, he's the son of George, who was the cousin of Sam, who was your dad's best friend, who, like, when you were 3 years old, you went to the Museum of Science and Industry with his son. It's like, no, I don't remember him, Mom. I don't remember at all. But she'd have convoluted things like that. And the funniest thing, actually, so that was a real one where technically I did have 6 degrees of separation with John Brubaker. There was something and there was a tie to him, and I went with the son of his cousin, of his brother, of whatever. So there was a connection and she found it, but I don't have that kind of memory. I don't have that kind of connection, but my mom did. But the funniest is when she got the kids mixed up. So it'd be like my older brother had the connection and not me. And I'd be like, no, doesn't ring a bell. No, doesn't ring a bell. You remember in 5th grade? No, doesn't ring a bell. And then there'd be some instance and be like, oh, okay, that wasn't me. So, but one of my favorite memories of the 6 degrees of separation from Mom Bencover was we were in a restaurant. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Ecolabs, but Ecolabs basically makes chemicals. So they do like the urinal cakes. They do various things they do cleaning supplies too for kitchens, but a lot of their stuff that is international and restaurants and institutions use is they have bathroom cleaning supplies, like I said, urinal cakes, stuff like deodorizer, cleaning supplies, all that kind of stuff. So most of the people, when they service a restaurant, they're wearing overalls, and on their overalls, unless above their right lapel, right pocket, they have Ecolabs on it. So this gentleman has this overall thing. Obviously, he's just serviced the bathroom of the restaurant we're in. And as he's walking by our table, my mom sees that he's wearing Ecolabs overalls, and stops him. Goes, sir, what's your name? I don't remember the guy's name, but let's say it's Joe. He goes, I'm Joe. Hi, I'm Carolyn Bencover. How you doing? And he's like, I'm good. Wondering why a restaurant patron of a bathroom where he just cleaned is stopping him. And she's like, "So you work for Ecolabs, huh?" And he's going, yes, I do. I work for Ecolabs. What do you do for them? She's like, "Oh, I replenish supplies in the bathroom, like deodorizers, urinal cakes, things like that. So all that kind of good stuff." She goes, my son works for Ecolabs. Maybe you've heard of him." And he's like, "What's his name?" And my mom tells him, "Oh, it's so and so Bencover." No, never heard of him. "Oh, well, he works in the home office in St. Paul, Minnesota, and he's the what was he at the time? He was like some kind of treasurer or something. So he's an executive. He wasn't a C-level, but he was pretty darn close to it." And this guy's, "No, I've never been to the home office. I don't know any of the executives of our company. I just report locally and all that good stuff." "Well, I'll tell him I met you." And I could just see, yeah. So then he left, and I mean, they had a pleasant time. It was a pleasant conversation. The guy probably left feeling better. Someone talked to him, saw him as a person. My mom was great at that. You always left conversations with her most of the time more uplifted than when you went into it. And so I bet anything like that night or the next time she talked to my older brother, she said, "Hey, I just met someone you work with." And my older brother is the most serious of us four, I would say. He's the most serious. And he's like, "Oh, who was that, Mom?" And then I don't know. Let's say Joe Smith. "Oh, Joe Smith. What does he do?" It's like, "Well, I was in a restaurant and I met him, and he puts supplies in the bathroom and all that kind of stuff." And my brother probably laughed and said, "Mom, I work in the corporate office, and I have no problem with having friends, at that level or whatever, but I don't know everybody in the company. I just know people that live here in Minnesota and who work in the corporate office." So that's probably a funny conversation. Anyway, so that's the almost about my mom. She was almost a writer. She almost knew everybody in the world. She was a master of 6 degrees separation, weaving through conversations. And at the end of a conversation, if she didn't find an already existing connection, she would make a connection with that person. It's pretty amazing to watch, actually. So, and as we move forward, so I have a little bit of that, but mostly, basically, they're party protocol. So when my mom and dad would go to a party together, they had an agreement. My father was like me. I acted like my father at parties. I would go sit on the couch or a chair, something somewhere in the back in the corner, and I would talk to one person, maybe two people, the entire party. We'd have a great conversation, but that would be it. I'd kind of hang out and get a beer or whatever and just talk with that one person and have a conversation for the whole party. And when I got tired of conversing, I would just leave. For my dad, he would have to figure out about a half hour before he was tired of being there. And he'd give my mom the signal, and it'd be like, "Carolyn, 30-minute warning." And so that signal meant that she had 30 minutes to go press the flesh and go and say goodbye to everybody. And she would hit everybody in the party and say goodbye. They were really cool together. They were extremely funny. They both had different senses of humor and all that kind of stuff. So that concludes episode 2 of Almost a Real Spiel. First episode was my dad, and second episode was my mom. I know they will probably be coming up in future episodes too, but it won't be episodes dedicated to them. But just to reboot your memory, so Almost a Real Spiel is my stories, my life. There have been many occasions many occupations where I worked hard at becoming the best or getting whatever renowned was attributed to those occupations, but not quite making it. And so in the future, I probably have 50 or so of those. The future episodes, at least 25 of them, will be my stories about those things, whether it's writer, stand-up comedian, actor, all those kind of things, and CIO, all those kind of things. And then when I run out of I probably won't run out of those, but maybe around episode 27, because the first 2 are my parents, 25 of me. But I might invite guests on here, or even pull people in from the audience, because by that time I'll have a larger audience, and I'll pull them in and ask them about their almost stories. And almost is not a bad thing. So here's my philosophy on almost. So your dreams sometimes your dreams change. But what I recommend is you have your dream, you find your purpose, and you go for it. Whatever it is, you go for it, full hog, do everything you do based on your personality and your drive and all that. And you go as far as you can until you know, kind of get a feel for whatever it is that's your dream. So in the future, like when I talk about acting, I did acting for decades and decades. And by comparing myself to others, which I recommend not doing, as an actor, I wasn't like in the famous echelon where, people work regularly and make tons of bucks. By the way, those are very, very minuscule part of the acting community. But I did okay. I had commercials, I was on several TV shows, I got some movies and tons of plays, all that kind of stuff. I did well. I worked for a long time as an actor on the side because the most I ever made, well, we'll save that for that episode. But anyways, what I found out after decades, it's like, hey, you know what? I like acting. I'm probably never going to make it big. I'm not going to write the $10 million check to myself like Jim Carrey, and then 5 years later I get paid for $10 million for a movie. That's probably not going to happen for me, and that's okay. And so then I moved on to other things. So almost do your best, find your purpose, find a dream, push for that dream, and then when you have a feel for it, and you can just let it go, or it morphs. So like last week, I talked about my dad. My dad's two dreams, being a professional pilot. And so he met my mom, had 4 kids. And so that wasn't in the cards to become a professional pilot. When he was looking, airlines weren't that big. And so he found a way towards the end of his life to build a community of people, which basically did a timeshare for airplanes, and he could fly whenever he wanted. So that was pretty cool. So you can morph your dream. Don't let go of your dream, but you can morph it. But at least go for it. Get familiar enough with it that you know what it's going to look like for you. And that doesn't mean give up your dreams. Never give up on your dreams. Just be open that they might tweak a little. So that's what Almost, the Real Spiel, is about. I will see you next week at 2:30, same bat channel, same bat time. And this is the end of episode 2, The Real Spiel with Marky B. Marky B signing off. We'll do the Rimmer thing from Red Dwarf. Episode 2 finished.